The sharp, metallic scrape of Victoria Brennan's mop bucket echoed through the Buds compound at 0530 hours, the only sound competing with the Pacific waves crashing 200 yards away. The instructor lounge smelled like stale coffee and testosterone, a combination she'd grown familiar with over 6 months of night shifts. At 5'5" and 132 pounds, she moved through the space with economical precision, her cleaning patterns forming tactical angles that no one seemed to notice. Victoria wore the same faded blue janitorial uniform she'd worn for half a year. Her dark brown hair, pulled back in a simple ponytail, showed streaks of early gray at 34. Her hands, raw from industrial chemicals, gripped the mop handle with knuckles positioned for weapon retention, elbows at defensive angles, center of gravity too low for any civilian cleaner. But no one looked closely enough to see it. The door banged open at 0537 hours. Commander Dylan Hayes entered first, 6'1", 205 pounds of blonde arrogance in perfectly pressed fatigues. At 38, he carried himself like a man who'd spent 14 years proving something. Behind him came Lieutenant Jackson Reeves, 29, lean and eager, his dark hair gelled even at this hour. Chief Petty Officer Kurt Madsen followed, 35, weathered and cold-eyed. 12 other instructors filed in behind them, several already holding phones. Hayes stopped mid-stride when he saw Victoria. A grin spread across his conventionally handsome face. Didn't know SEAL training included custodial arts now? The room erupted in knowing laughter. Victoria continued mopping, her gray-blue eyes focused on the floor. Reeves grabbed coffee, deliberately stepping close to where she worked. "What's your call sign, mop lady, Sergeant Scrubs?" More laughter. Phones lifted, recording. Madsen leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "This is what happens when you lower standards. Next, they'll be cleaning toilets in combat zones. Oh wait, women already do that." Victoria's jaw tightened microscopically. She dipped the mop, wrung it with controlled force, continued working. The silence from her seemed to encourage them. Hayes poured coffee, stirring it while watching her with predatory amusement. "You know what I love about civilian contractors? They know their place, unlike some people who think they deserve to be here." The jab was clearly aimed at the ongoing debate about female SEAL candidates. Several instructors shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke up. Victoria moved to clean near the weapons rack, a mistake. Reeves noticed the shift in her attention, how her eyes automatically cataloged each rifle. "Careful around those," Reeves said mockingly. "They're dangerous, might go off if you dust them wrong." Victoria's hand paused, used on the mop handle for half a second. Then she continued past the rack, but not before her gaze lingered on an Mk18 CQBR. Her voice came out quiet, almost to herself. "Carbon buildup in the gas tube. Needs cleaning, or it'll jam in humid environments." The room went silent for 3 full seconds. Hayes set down his coffee. "What did you just say?" Victoria looked up, seeming to realize she'd spoken aloud. "Nothing, sir. I apologize." No. Hayes walked closer, invading her space. "You said something about the weapon. How the hell would you know anything about gas tube maintenance?" Victoria kept her eyes down. "I watch YouTube sometimes, military channels." The room exploded in laughter, louder this time. Several instructors replayed the moment on their phones, already composing captions. Madsen shook his head. "She watches YouTube. Jesus Christ. Next, she'll be telling us about tactics she learned from Call of Duty." Hayes circled her slowly, performing for his audience. This is the problem with hiring civilians into military facilities. They watch a few videos, pick up some terminology, and think they understand what we do. They don't see the blood, the sacrifice, the years of training. Victoria remained motionless, mop in hand, waiting for him to finish. Reeves approached the weapons rack, pulling down the Mk18 she'd mentioned. He made a show of inspecting it, then looked at Victoria with exaggerated shock. "Oh my God, she's right. There is carbon buildup. Somebody alert the Pentagon, we've got a tactical genius mopping our floors. The mockery was relentless now. 14 men, all recording, all laughing at the small woman in the janitorial uniform who dared to speak about their world. That's when Reeves kicked her bucket. It wasn't accidental. His boot connected with deliberate force, sending dirty water cascading across the freshly cleaned floor. The gray liquid spread in a wide pool, soaking into the concrete. "Oops," Reeves said, smirking. "Guess you'll need to clean that again. Good practice for you." Victoria stared at the spreading water. Her breathing remained controlled. 4 counts in, 4 counts out, the pattern of someone trained to manage adrenaline. She knelt slowly, reaching for cleaning rags. Hayes stood over her. "See, she knows her place, on her knees where—" "Sir, that's not appropriate." Every head turned. Petty Officer Second Class Tyler Grant stood near the door, his red hair catching the fluorescent light. At 24, he was the youngest instructor present, and his hazel eyes showed discomfort that had finally overridden caution. Hayes's expression darkened. "Something to say, Petty Officer?" Tyler's resolve flickered. "No, sir, I just meant, want to help her clean? Get down there with her." Tyler fell silent, shame coloring his face. He looked at Victoria, clearly wanting to do more but unwilling to sacrifice his position. Victoria soaked up the spilled water, wringing rags into the bucket with mechanical efficiency. Her movements were too precise, too controlled. Each motion economical, no wasted energy. The way someone moves when they've spent years making every action count. Master Chief Petty Officer Raymond Cole entered at 0549 hours. At 52, with 30 years of service etched into his barrel-chested frame, he carried authority that even Hayes respected. His salt and pepper buzz cut and dark brown perceptive eyes took in the scene immediately. Victoria on the floor, the circle of laughing instructors, Tyler's guilty posture. Cole said nothing at first. He poured coffee, but his eyes never left Victoria. He watched how she positioned herself while cleaning, always maintaining visual contact with exits, never fully turning her back to the room. Balance centered despite being on her knees. That wasn't the posture of a cleaning lady. That was tactical awareness. Hayes didn't notice Cole's scrutiny. Anyway, as I was saying before we got distracted by our YouTube tactician here, training schedule for the week needs adjusting. We've got 40 candidates starting Hell Week prep, and I want to make sure we weed out the weak ones early. The meeting continued around Victoria as she finished cleaning. She stood, gathered her supplies, and moved toward the door without making eye contact with anyone. As she passed Cole, he spoke quietly. "You, former service?" Victoria paused for a fraction of a second. "No, Master Chief." "Civilian your whole life?" "Yes, Master Chief." Cole studied her face, seeing something in her 1,000-yard stare that troubled him. "Where'd you learn about weapons maintenance?" "YouTube, Master Chief." She left before he could ask anything else. Cole watched her go, then looked at the weapons rack, at the MK-18 she'd identified. He walked over, field-stripped the rifle with practiced hands, and examined the gas tube. Significant carbon buildup. In another dozen rounds, it would have caused a malfunction. He glanced at the doorway where Victoria had disappeared, then at Hayes, who was still holding court about training standards. Something wasn't right, and Master Chief Raymond Cole hadn't survived 3 decades by ignoring his instincts. 2 hours later, at 0730 hours, Victoria pushed her cleaning cart across the outdoor range area. The morning sun burned off the coastal fog as 40 trainees ran the obstacle course 200 yards away, their grunts and instructor shouts carrying on the salt air. Commander Hayes stood at the firing line, conducting weapons inspection for instructor qualification, 9 rifles laid out on tables. Victoria worked methodically, emptying brass casings from collection bins. The metal clinked as she sorted them automatically. 5.56 millimeter NATO in one container, 7.62 millimeter in another, 50 calibered BMG in a third. Her hands moved with unconscious precision, identifying each round by weight and dimension without looking. Chief Madsen noticed first. He'd been walking past when he saw her sorting pattern. "Check this out. The janitor thinks she can handle our brass." 3 instructors drifted over, curious, Lieutenant Reeves among them. Victoria continued working, seemingly unaware of their attention. Madsen picked up a handful of sorted casings. "What are you doing?" "Different calibers require different disposal protocols," Victoria said quietly, not looking up. Reeves laughed. "Disposal protocols? You've been reading our manuals, sweetheart. That's classified material." "It's on the EPA website, Environmental Regulations for Military Ranges." Victoria's voice remained flat, factual. Hayes approached, drawn by the commotion. He watched Victoria sort another bin of mixed brass, her fingers identifying each casing instantly. "Where'd you learn that?" "The disposal company requires it sorted. I read their guidelines." "Awful thorough for a janitor." Hayes' tone carried suspicion now, not just mockery. On the obstacle course, a trainee named Seaman recruit Amy Chen struggled on the rope climb. At 22, she was the first female BUDS candidate at this facility, and every movement was scrutinized. She'd made it further than anyone expected, which somehow made the doubt worse. Victoria glanced up briefly, watching Chen's technique. Her eyes tracked the grip positions, the leg wrap, the core engagement. Professional assessment, automatic and unbidden. A trainee on the upper platform, Rodriguez, 19, overconfident, juggled his magazine while watching Chen struggle. The aluminum magazine slipped from his fingers, tumbling 20 feet down directly toward where Victoria knelt beside her cart. Victoria's hand shot up without conscious thought. She caught the magazine mid-air, reflexes operating on pure muscle memory. The catch was clean, controlled, her body position already balanced for the unexpected weight. The movement was too fast, too precise. 4 instructors saw it. Hayes saw it. Victoria stared at the magazine in her hand, realizing her mistake. For 3 seconds, no one spoke. Then her training kicked in again. She automatically checked the magazine. Press check for rounds, visual inspection of feed lips, thumb test of spring tension. The assessment took 2 seconds. She handed it back to Rodriguez, who'd climbed down, stunned. "Weak spring, round 24 will misfeed." Rodriguez took it, speechless. Hayes stepped closer. "How did you know that?" "The resistance felt wrong." "You caught a falling magazine and diagnosed a spring problem in 2 seconds." Hayes's voice had shifted from mocking to something harder. Nobody's reflexes are that good by accident. Victoria stood, brushing dirt from her uniform. "I should get back to work." "Not yet." Hayes positioned himself between her and the cart. "I want to understand what we've got here. A janitor who knows weapons maintenance, disposal protocols, and can diagnose magazine malfunctions by feel." The crowd of instructors had grown, 12 now, several filming. Madsen picked up Victoria's cart and deliberately pushed it toward the mud berm behind the firing line. Cleaning supplies scattered across the dirt, bottles rolling into puddles of rainwater from the previous night. "Clumsy of me," Madsen said, not bothering to hide his smile. "Better clean that up before someone trips. Safety first." Victoria walked to the spilled supplies, knelt in the mud, and began collecting bottles and rags. Her face showed nothing, no anger, no frustration, no humiliation, just blank acceptance. Master Chief Cole stood 30 yards away near the armory door, watching. His weathered face showed carefully controlled fury. Hayes pulled out his phone. "All personnel, report to Range 3. We're about to have an educational demonstration." Within 10 minutes, 65 people had assembled. Trainees, instructors, support staff. Word spread fast on a military base. Something entertaining was happening, and phones came out immediately. Chen stood in the front group of trainees, her expression torn between hope and dread. Hayes waited until Victoria had collected her supplies and stood. "Victoria, that is your name, right?" "Yes, sir." "We've been impressed by your tactical knowledge." Hayes's tone dripped with false courtesy. "How about you show these trainees what you've learned from YouTube?" "I'd rather just finish my work, sir." "I'm ordering you, as facility commander. You're a contractor on my base, which means you follow instructions. Hayes gestured to the weapons table. Field strip an M4, blindfolded. Or we file a complaint about your civilian access to classified areas, and you lose this job. The trap was elegant. Refuse and lose employment. Accept and likely fail publicly, providing entertainment. Victoria looked at the assembled crowd. 70 people now, all recording. "What rifle?" she asked quietly. Hayes grinned. "Your choice." Victoria walked to the weapons rack, examined 3 M4 variants, and selected one. She pulled the charging handle, checked the chamber, tested the trigger reset. "This one," she said. "Why that one?" Hayes asked. "It's been fired recently, harder to disassemble with carbon fouling." The comment landed like a stone. She'd deliberately chosen the most difficult option. Reeves exchanged glances with Madsen. Why would she make it harder on herself? Herself? Cole, watching from the back, thought the same thing. His jaw tightened. Hayes placed the rifle on the table. Standard field strip. Blindfold goes on first. Timer starts when you touch the weapon. SEAL qualification standard is 45 seconds. Madsen held up a stopwatch, smirking. "I'll bet she takes 5 minutes, if she completes it at all." Tyler Grant stepped forward. "I'll apply the blindfold, sir. Make sure it's fair." Hayes nodded, amused by the young petty officer's earnestness. Tyler tied the blindfold carefully, ensuring it blocked Victoria's vision completely, but wasn't painfully tight. He leaned close as he secured it. "You don't have to do this," he whispered. Victoria's breathing had already changed. Slower, deeper, the respiratory pattern of someone entering a performance state. Her hands flexed once at her sides. Combat prep ritual. "I know," she whispered back. Tyler stepped away. Victoria stood motionless, hands at her sides, head tilted slightly as if listening to something beyond the crowd noise. Madsen raised the stopwatch. "Timer ready. This should be hilarious." Hayes placed Victoria's right hand on the rifle. "Begin." Victoria's hands moved. Magazine release pressed, magazine removed and placed at precise 12 o'clock position on the table. Charging handle pulled, held, bolt locked back. Charging handle removed, placed at 3 o'clock. Takedown pins, rear pin first, then front, pushed through with controlled pressure. Upper receiver separated from lower, placed at 9 o'clock. Bolt carrier group extracted, placed at 6 o'clock. Firing pin retaining pin removed with fingernail pressure. Firing pin extracted. Cam pin rotated and removed. Bolt removed from carrier. Every movement was mechanical, efficient, zero hesitation. Her hands never fumbled, never searched. Each component went to its designated position in perfect order. "Complete," Victoria said. Madsen stared at his stopwatch. 23.4 seconds. Silence dropped over the crowd like a physical weight. Hayes stepped forward, examining the disassembled components. Perfect field strip. Every part in proper sequence, properly oriented. "Check it again," Hayes said. "She probably missed something." 3 instructors inspected the work. 1 shook his head. "Complete and correct, sir." The crowd began murmuring. Phones captured everything. Victoria stood still, blindfolded, waiting. Hayes' face flushed. "Reassemble. Timer starts now." Victoria's hands reversed the sequence. Components came together with practiced efficiency that bordered on impossible. Bolt into carrier, cam pin rotated and seated, firing pin inserted and secured, bolt carrier group into upper receiver, charging handle installed, upper and lower joined, pins secured, charging handle pulled to check function, bolt released. Leased. Trigger pressed to verify reset. Magazine inserted. Complete. 19.7 seconds, Madsen said, voice hollow. Victoria removed her blindfold, blinking in sudden sunlight. Reeves stammered, "That's not possible." Victoria's gray-blue eyes met his. "The weapon is still unserviceable. Bolt catch needs replacement within 200 rounds. Before we see what happens next, quick question for you. Have you ever been underestimated because of how you looked or where you worked? Comment below and let us know. And if you're enjoying this, hit subscribe, because what happens in the next few minutes will leave you speechless. At 8:15 hours, the crowd at Range 3 had swelled to 90 personnel. Word had spread beyond the immediate compound. Off-duty instructors arrived, administrative staff found reasons to walk past, even kitchen crew stood at a distance watching. Commander Hayes stood rigid, jaw clenched, staring at the disassembled rifle Victoria had stripped and reassembled in under 45 seconds total. His authority was slipping. He could feel it in the murmurs, see it in the way his instructors exchanged glances. A civilian janitor had just outperformed qualification standards that many of them had struggled to meet. Master Chief Cole pushed through the crowd, his weathered face serious. "Commander, perhaps we should—" "Shooting test," Hayes interrupted. 600 yards, iron sights, moving targets. Chief Madson's eyes widened. "Sir, that's sniper qualification standard. We don't even—" "Now!" Hayes pointed to the long-range setup at the far end of the facility. 5 targets, 5 rounds, moving platforms. Cole stepped closer, voice low. "Dylan, this has gone far enough. Let her get back to work." Hayes ignored him, already walking toward the range. The crowd followed like a tide, phones held high. Victoria remained by the weapons table, still holding the M4. She looked at the distant range, then back at Hayes's retreating figure. Her expression was unreadable. Tyler Grant approached her. "You don't have to do this. Nobody can make those shots with iron sights at that distance, not with moving targets." "I know," Victoria said quietly. "Then why?" "Because if I refuse, he wins anyway." She started walking toward the range. The 600-yard line was normally used for advanced sniper training. 5 reactive steel targets mounted on motorized platforms that moved laterally at random intervals. The wind was picking up, 10 to 12 miles per hour crosswind from the northwest. Difficult conditions even for optics. Hayes grabbed an M4A1 from the rack, the same model Victoria had just field stripped. Standard issue, iron sights only, no modifications. He handed it to her with barely controlled anger. 5 targets, 5 rounds, 45-second time limit. 1. No miss, and you're done. The crowd had grown to over 100 now. Chen stood in the front row, her hands clasped together like prayer. Victoria accepted the rifle, performed a functions check with automatic precision. She examined the ammunition Madsen handed her, 5 rounds on a stripper clip. M855A1, she observed, not M193. Madsen frowned. Problem with military standard issue? Different ballistics, heavier round, better wind performance, but more drop at 600. Victoria loaded the rounds into a magazine, just confirming specifications. Cole's eyes narrowed at that comment. Civilians didn't discuss bullet ballistics casually. They certainly didn't know the difference between M855A1 and M193 ammunition. Victoria walked to the firing line, went prone without hesitation. Her body positioning was textbook perfect, 45-degree angle to the target line, support elbow directly under the rifle, firing elbow high and out, cheek weld consistent, breathing rhythm established immediately. Bone support, not muscle tension. Reeves whispered to another instructor, "Where the hell did a janitor learn that position?" Hayes raised his hand. "Targets active on my mark. Timer starts with first shot." He dropped his hand. "Go." The steel targets began moving on their platforms, lateral movement at varying speeds. Victoria's first shot broke at 2.1 seconds. The leftmost target, 600 yards distant, rang with a metallic clang and dropped. Center mass hit. The crowd's murmur grew louder. Second shot at 3.8 seconds. A target moving right to left, approximately 2 feet per second. Victoria led the target, compensated for wind, squeezed. The target's head section rang and fell. Gasps rippled through the experienced shooters present. Headshot on a moving target at 600 yards with iron sights violated everything they knew about practical accuracy. Third shot at 5.2 seconds. The center target accelerated its lateral movement. Victoria tracked, adjusted, fired. Hit. The target dropped. Reeves grabbed the arm of the instructor next to him. This isn't possible. Even our designated marksman can't. Fourth shot at 6.9 seconds. The smallest target, only 18 inches square, partially obscured by a barrier. Victoria put the round through the 6-inch gap. Perfect hit. The crowd went silent except for the wind and distant ocean waves. Fifth shot at 8.1 seconds. The final target sat behind an angled steel obstacle, no direct line of sight. Victoria aimed at the obstacle's edge, fired. The round ricocheted at a calculated angle, struck the target. It fell. Total elapsed time, 8.1 seconds, for 5 targets at 600 yards. No one spoke for 5 full seconds. Chief Madsen grabbed the spotting scope, trained it downrange, and checked each target carefully. Yes, as he lowered the scope. 5 hits, he reported, voice barely audible. 3 center mass, 2 headshots. Grouping is... He trailed off, then forced himself to continue. Professional sniper standard. Better than professional. Hayes snatched the scope, verified himself. His face went from red to pale. An instructor in the back, a former Marine Scout sniper, spoke up. "Sir, I've been shooting for 16 years. What she just did is Olympic-level precision. Nobody shoots like that, not even our sniper instructors." Victoria stood, brushed dirt from her uniform, and safed the rifle. She turned to Hayes with those unsettling gray-blue eyes. "Your range is well maintained. Wind flags are accurate." Hayes stared at her like she was a ghost. "Who the hell are you?" "I'm the night janitor, sir." "Bullshit." Hayes stepped into her space, aggressive. "That shooting was Tier 1 level. That was DevGru standard. Nobody learns that from YouTube." Victoria said nothing. Reeves circled around, blocking her path to the cleaning cart she'd abandoned earlier. "You're lying. What's your real background?" "I clean buildings for a living." "Stop lying." Reeves' voice cracked with frustration and something like fear. Cole pushed forward. "Commander, stand down. Victoria, maybe you should—" "I'm going back to work now," Victoria said quietly. She tried to step around Reeves. He moved to block her again. "You're not going anywhere until you explain yourself. What unit were you with? What's your actual training?" "Move, Lieutenant," Victoria said. Her tone hadn't changed, but something in it made several people step back. Reeves either didn't hear it or didn't care. "Make me." The confrontation hung in the air. Over 100 people, all recording, watching a lieutenant challenge a janitor who just performed impossible feats. Hayes grinned, smelling blood. "Yes, show us your hand-to-hand YouTube training." Reeves reached for Victoria's arm. Not a strike, not combat, just an aggressive grab meant to intimidate. Victoria moved. Her reaction was pure reflex, bypassing conscious thought. Sidestep, arm trap, leverage against the joint's natural breaking point. Reeves went from standing to flat on his back in 1.4 seconds, the air driven from his lungs. Victoria released him immediately, stepped back, hands raised. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." Reeves lay on the ground, staring at the sky, trying to process what happened. "What the fuck was that?" Cole's voice cut through the shocked silence. "That was level 5 close quarters battle. That's what that was." A sergeant in the crowd stepped forward, his phone lowered. "I've seen that move. DevGru demonstration at Dam Neck 2019. They showed us advanced CQB techniques." He pointed at Victoria. "That exact sequence." Another instructor, older, squinted at Victoria. "Victoria, that tattoo, behind your ear, I can just see it." Victoria's hand moved unconsciously to the small anchor tattoo behind her right ear, partially hidden by her ponytail. She pulled the collar of her uniform higher. But 3 people had seen it, including Cole, whose face had gone pale. Chen whispered to the trainee next to her, "Is she one of them? Is she a SEAL?" Tyler Grant had his phone out, searching frantically. His eyes widened as he found something. Madsen turned to Hayes. "Sir, we need to verify her background, now. This isn't adding up." Hayes, desperate to regain control, pulled out his radio. "Security to Range 3, detain civilian contractor Victoria Brennan for questioning." Victoria's expression didn't change. "I assaulted no one. He grabbed me first. Self-defense. Excessive force. Possible stolen valor. Impersonation of military personnel." Hayes rattled off charges that wouldn't stick but sounded official. "You'll answer questions about where you learned those skills, or I'm calling NCIS." Cole stepped between them. "Commander, I strongly advise you to reconsider. I'm filing formal complaints. She's either a security risk or she's lying about her background." Hayes pointed at Victoria. "Either way, she's done here." Two base security personnel arrived within 3 minutes, Petty Officer First Class Martinez and Petty Officer Second Class Jackson. They approached cautiously, having heard enough radio chatter to know this wasn't a standard situation. Martinez addressed Victoria professionally. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us to answer some questions." Victoria nodded. "I'll cooperate fully." As security escorted her away, Tyler Grant found what he'd been searching for. His face went white. "Oh my God," he whispered. Reeves, finally back on his feet, grabbed Tyler's shoulder. What did you find?" Tyler showed his phone to those nearby. The screen displayed a news article. "Kabul's Safe House Massacre. JSOC Team Lost, 2021. Below it, another headline. "Decorated SEAL Officer Medically Discharged After Afghanistan Operation." The photo was grainy, partially obscured, but the name was visible. Lieutenant Commander V. Brennan. Chen read over someone's shoulder. "Is that her? It can't be her." Tyler scrolled through more articles, details about an ambush, 8 operators, 7 killed, 1 survivor. Cole stood motionless, staring at the path Victoria had taken toward the security building. His voice came out rough. "It's her." At 900 hours, the crowd at Range 3 hadn't dispersed. 120 people milled around in clusters, phones out, piecing together information. Tyler Grant stood at the center of the largest group, his phone screen drawing instructors and trainees like moths to flame. The article headline read, "Kabul's Safe House Massacre. 8 JSOC operators ambushed, 7 KIA." Below it, another source. "Female SEAL commander takes medical discharge following classified Afghanistan operation." A grizzled instructor named Phillips leaned in. "That says Lieutenant Commander. The janitor? No way." Tyler scrolled to another cached page, this one from a military family advocacy site. "Look at this. August 14th, 2021. Taliban ambush on extraction operation. 8 operators inserted, 7 killed in action, 1 survivor medevaced with multiple gunshot wounds." He pointed to a detail. Survivor's rank listed as LCDR before name was redacted. Chen pushed forward. "The timeline matches. That was 3 years ago. If she was medically discharged then, she'd be out here now, needing work." Reeves rubbed his ribs where he'd hit the ground. "The way she moved, that wasn't basic combatives. That was specialist level." Master Chief Cole stood apart from the groups, arms crossed, staring at nothing. His mind replayed every interaction with Victoria over 6 months. The way she moved through spaces, how she never turned her back to doors, the precision in her cleaning patterns, the 1,000-yard stare he'd mistaken for exhaustion. He'd served 30 years, seen combat in the Gulf War and early global war on terror operations. He knew what operators looked like, even when they were trying to hide it. And he'd missed it for 6 months because he'd seen a woman in a janitor uniform and stopped looking. The failure burned. At the outdoor range, Hayes paced like a caged animal. Madsen and 3 other instructors stood nearby, uncertain. "She could be lying," Hayes said. "Stolen valor. People fake military service all the time." Madsen shook his head slowly. Sir, that shooting wasn't fake. I've been a rangemaster for 8 years. What she did requires thousands of hours of training. Tens of thousands. So she's former military? Infantry, maybe. That doesn't make her special operations. That takedown she put on Reeves, another instructor interjected. I've only seen that taught at advanced CQB schools. Bragg and damn neck, nowhere else. Hayes stopped pacing. We follow protocol. Security will verify her background. If she's lying, she's done. If she's not, he didn't finish the sentence. At 0915 hours in the base security office, Victoria sat in a small interrogation room. The space was deliberately uncomfortable. Metal chair, bright fluorescent lights, mirror that was obviously one-way glass. She'd been in rooms like this before, on both sides of the table. Petty Officer Martinez and Petty Officer Jackson sat across from her. Commander Hayes and Lieutenant Reeves stood against the back wall. A video camera recorded everything. Martinez, professional and cautious, opened a laptop. State your full name and social security number. For the record, Victoria Ann Brennan. She recited her social security number clearly. Martinez typed, waited for the background check to load. His eyebrows rose. Employment history shows you were hired 6 months ago through a civilian staffing agency. Clean record. Contractor status confirmed. He scrolled down, then stopped. That's odd. Hayes leaned forward. What? Her file has access restrictions. I'm getting clearance blocks. Martinez clicked several more times. I need higher authorization to view her complete background. Jackson frowned. What kind of restrictions? It says previous TS-SCI clearance, currently inactive due to medical discharge. Martinez looked up at Victoria. Ma'am, what's TS-SCI? Top secret, sensitive compartmented information, Victoria said quietly. Hayes slammed his hand on the table. Why does a janitor have a former top secret clearance? I'm not authorized to discuss my previous employment without proper clearance channels, sir. That's convenient. Reeves pushed off the wall. Can't verify anything because it's all classified? Classic stolen valor excuse. Victoria met his eyes. Stolen valor is a federal crime, Lieutenant, which is why I'm not making any claims about my service. I'm simply stating I'm not authorized to discuss it. Hayes circled the table. You won't confirm or deny military service? Correct, sir. That's bullshit, Martinez. Call NCIS. I want her investigated for impersonation of military personnel and excessive use of force. Martinez hesitated. Sir, the background check shows legitimate clearance history. If she actually held TS-SCI, she's bound by non-disclosure agreements. She might be telling the truth about authorization, or she's hiding behind convenient excuses. Hayes pulled out his phone. I'm escalating this to the base commander. Outside the security building, the crowd had grown to 150. Tyler stood with Master Chief Cole, showing him the articles he'd found. Cole read carefully, his jaw tightening with each paragraph. Kabul Safe House, August 2021. I remember when that happened. Command went into lockdown. They wouldn't release details, said it was compartmented. This advocacy site says families fought for 3 years to get basic information released. They finally got some details declassified last month. 8 operators. Gold Squadron. Cole's head snapped up. Gold Squadron? That's DevGru, right? Team 6? Cole's hands were shaking. Show me that tattoo description again. Tyler scrolled. Small anchor, specific design, usually placed behind right ear. Gold Squadron tradition for operators who lost team members in combat. Cole closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet. I saw that tattoo this morning, when the wind moved her collar. Inside security, immediately, Martinez's supervisor arrived, Lieutenant Commander Phillips, base security chief. 48 years old, 22 years of service, Phillips had seen enough irregular situations to know when something was above his authority level. He reviewed Martinez's screen, then attempted his own background check with higher clearance. The system denied him immediately. Access restricted, contact Naval Special Warfare Command personnel security. Phillips looked at Victoria with new wariness. Ma'am, who authorized your hiring here? The civilian staffing agency, sir. I applied through normal channels. Your file has Tier 1 flags. You shouldn't be on this base without command notification. Phillips pulled out his phone. I need to make a call. Hayes stepped forward. I'm Facility Commander. I have authority. With respect, Commander, this is beyond facility level. Phillips dialed. This is LCDR Phillips, Coronado Base Security. I need verification on civilian contractor Victoria Brennan, Social Security number. He recited it. Yes, I'll hold. The room went silent. Victoria sat motionless, her breathing controlled. Phillips' expression changed as someone came on the line. His posture straightened unconsciously. Yes, ma'am. Currently detained for... Yes, ma'am. Right away, ma'am. He hung up, turned to Martinez. Release her, now. Hayes exploded. What? Who was that? Above my pay grade, Commander, and yours. Phillips' voice was steel. This detainment ends immediately. Reeves sputtered. She could be a security threat? My orders come from Naval Special Warfare Command, from a flag officer. Phillips looked at Hayes. Do yours? Martinez stood, addressed Victoria. Ma'am, you're free to go. I apologize for the detainment. Victoria stood. Thank you. Hayes blocked the door. I'm filing a complaint with... File whatever you want. Phillips moved Hayes aside physically. But right now, you're interfering with direct orders from a 2-star admiral. Victoria walked out of the security office into blinding sunlight and a crowd of 150 people. Phones lifted immediately. The murmur of conversation died. She walked through the parting crowd, head down, trying to reach her cleaning cart, still abandoned at the range. Chen stepped forward. Ma'am, I just want to say... It's fine. Go back to training, Victoria said softly. Cole intercepted her. Victoria, we need to talk. Master Chief, I'd rather not. The sound cut through everything else. The distinctive whump, hump, whump of rotor blades. A Navy MH-60S Seahawk appeared over the ocean, approaching fast. The helicopter bore Naval Special Warfare Command markings. It descended toward the landing pad 300 yards from the security building. Every person on the base who could see it went to attention instinctively. Inspectively. The Seahawk touched down, rotors still turning. The side door opened. A figure emerged in dress uniform, 2 stars gleaming on the collar. Rear Admiral Patricia Cortez, 51 years old, with command presence that radiated like heat. Her black hair, streaked with gray, was pulled back in a professional bun. Dark brown eyes swept the assembled crowd with the intensity of someone used to making life-or-death decisions. She walked directly toward the security building with long, purposeful strides. Hayes went pale. Oh, God. Cortez stopped 10 feet from Victoria. The 2 women looked at each other for 5 long seconds. Lieutenant Commander Brennan, Cortez said. Victoria's posture shifted automatically. Ma'am. The title hung in the air. Lieutenant Commander. Not janitor, not contractor. Cortez turned to the crowd. Someone want to explain why one of my officers is being detained at a training facility? Hayes stepped forward, trying to salvage something. Admiral, I can explain. Cortez raised one hand. Hayes fell silent. Commander Hayes, Lieutenant Commander Phillips, Master Chief Cole, my temporary office. 5 minutes. Cortez looked at Victoria. You, with me, now. She turned and walked toward the base headquarters building. Victoria followed. The crowd stood frozen, phones capturing everything, as a rear admiral escorted a janitor away like she was the most important person on the base. Because she was. At 9:45 hours, Rear Admiral Patricia Cortez commandeered the base commander's conference room. The space was sterile and functional. Long table, Navy flags in the corners, photos of past commanders on the walls. Victoria stood at ease near the window, still wearing her faded janitorial uniform. Master Chief Cole and Lieutenant Commander Phillips stood near the door. Outside, Commander Hayes, Lieutenant Reeves, and Chief Madsen waited in the hallway, anxiety radiating from them like heat. Cortez closed the door, then turned to Victoria. Her expression shifted from command authority to something closer to concern. "Sit down, Victoria." "I'd prefer to stand, ma'am." "That wasn't a request, Lieutenant Commander." Victoria sat. Her posture remained military despite the civilian clothes. Spine straight, hands folded, eyes forward. Cortez pulled out a chair across from her. "What the hell are you doing here?" "Working, ma'am." "As a janitor, at a SEAL training facility, where you clearly got recognized." Cortez's voice carried equal parts frustration and worry. "I needed work. They were hiring." Phillips cleared his throat. "Admiral, with respect, her background check showed—" "I know what it showed, Commander. I authorized the clearance flags myself when she was discharged." Cortez kept her eyes on Victoria. "Your medical discharge was supposed to include counseling placement."
Housing assistance, transition support, not this. Victoria's jaw tightened. "I completed the required sessions. The housing they offered was too quiet. So you took a night shift cleaning job at the one place that would remind you most of your service?" Cortez leaned forward. "Why?" "I sleep better with familiar sounds, training cadences, the ocean, helicopters overhead." Cole spoke quietly from his position by the door. "She's been sleeping in her car, hasn't she?" Victoria didn't answer. The silence was confirmation enough. Cortez closed her eyes briefly, pain crossing her face. "Victoria, you can't live like this." "I'm managing, ma'am." "You're surviving. That's different." Cortez pulled out her phone, entered a security code, and turned the screen toward Phillips. "Pull up her actual service record, full access code Delta 7 Victor." Phillips approached the room's computer terminal, entered the code and waited. The screen filled with text. His eyes widened as he read. "Lieutenant Commander Victoria Ann Brennan, 12 years active service, DevGru, Gold Squadron, 47 combat deployments across 5 theaters." He scrolled, his voice growing quieter. "Silver Star for action in Syria 2019, 2 Bronze Stars with Valor, 3 Purple Hearts." Cole's breath caught audibly. Phillips continued reading. "Specializations, counterterrorism, close quarters battle, weapons instruction, sniper qualified, Halo qualified, combat diver, security clearance, TSSCI with additional compartmentalized access." He looked up at Victoria with something like awe. "Ma'am, this record is... I've never seen anything like this." Cortez's voice was steady but hard. "August 14th, 2021. Kabul Safe House extraction operation. 8 operators from Gold Squadron inserted to evacuate high-value intelligence assets during the withdrawal. Intelligence was compromised. Taliban had the location." Victoria's hands, folded on the table, tightened until her knuckles went white. "Ambush came at 0400 local time. RPGs, small arms, coordinated assault from 3 directions." Cortez recited the details, like reading from a casualty report, which she probably had done 100 times. 7 operators KIA in the first 90 seconds. 1 survivor. Cole's voice was rough. "She was the only one who made it out." "She was the team commander," Cortez corrected. "She led the mission. When the ambush came, she tried to extract her wounded. Carried 2 teammates 400 meters to the extraction point under continuous fire. Both died before the helicopter arrived. She took 3 rounds. Shoulder, left leg, ribs. Kept fighting until the bird was wheels up." Phillips stared at Victoria with new understanding. "How did you even survive that?" Victoria spoke for the first time since sitting down, her voice distant. "I didn't do anything special. I just didn't die fast enough." "You saved the intelligence assets," Cortez said. "The 2 analysts you were there to extract both made it out because you held that position for 8 minutes against 40 hostiles. 7 of my people didn't make it out." Victoria's gray-blue eyes fixed on the table. "The mission failed. The mission was compromised before you inserted. Intelligence failure, not operator failure." Cortez's tone sharpened. "You know this. We've had this conversation."
Knowing it doesn't change what happened, ma'am. Cortez sat back, studying Victoria's face. Medical board determined you unfit for combat duty. PTSD, physical injuries preventing operational standards. You want to tell them what that actually means? Victoria remained silent. Cortez did it for her. It means she had panic attacks during live fire exercises. It means she failed weapons qualifications not because she couldn't shoot, but because the sound of gunfire sent her back to that safe house. It means she woke up screaming every night at 0400 for 18 months. Cole spoke softly. But she shot today, at the range. No hesitation. Because she wasn't being shot at, Victoria said quietly. It's different when rounds are coming back. Phillips looked confused. But the demonstrations, the field strip, the shooting, those were flawless. Muscle memory doesn't require mental health, Victoria replied. My hands remember even when my head doesn't cooperate. Cortez pulled up another screen on her phone, showed it to Cole and Phillips. This is her psych evaluation from 16 months ago. Read the summary. Phillips read aloud. Patient demonstrates exceptional technical proficiency but severe trauma response to combat stimuli. Dissociative episodes during stress scenarios. Survivor's guilt manifesting as self-isolation and self-punishment behaviors. Recommendation: medical discharge with mandatory counseling. Cole looked at Victoria with new eyes. The janitorial job, working nights alone. That was self-punishment, wasn't it? It was available work that let me be near something familiar without pretending I could still do the job. Cortez stood, paced to the window. And then Hayes happened, and you got exposed. I didn't mean to demonstrate anything. The field strip was reflex. The shooting was... I don't know why I agreed to that. Because part of you still wants to prove you're capable, Cortez said. Part of you is still fighting to show you're not broken. I am broken, ma'am. You're injured. That's different. Cortez turned back to face her. Hayes and his people need to answer for their behavior. But first, I need to know what you want. Do you want to disappear again? I can transfer you. New location, fresh start. Victoria.
Victoria shook her head. Running didn't help the first time. Then what? I don't know, ma'am. A knock at the door interrupted them. Cortez called out, "Enter." A junior officer stepped in. "Ma'am, Commander Hayes is requesting to speak with you. He says it's urgent." "I'm sure he does." Cortez glanced at Cole. "Master Chief, is there a spare, working uniform on this base, Lieutenant Commander size?" Cole straightened. "I'll have one brought immediately, ma'am." "Do that. Proper rank insignia." Cortez looked at Victoria. "You're going to stand next to me when I address this situation publicly. In uniform." Victoria's face went pale. "Ma'am, I'd rather not." "I know what you'd rather do. You'd rather hide and hope this goes away, but it won't." Cortez's voice was firm but not unkind. "Every phone on this base recorded your demonstrations. It's probably already on social media. This is damage control now, not prevention." Phillips spoke up. "Admiral, if I may, what about Commander Hayes? He did detain her without proper authority." "Oh, Hayes and I will have a very detailed conversation." Cortez's expression went cold. "But first, we handle the public situation, then consequences." 20 minutes passed. A female petty officer arrived with a working uniform, proper size, lieutenant commander ranked insignia already affixed. Victoria changed in a private office, emerging in Navy Type 3 camouflage, her rank clearly visible on her chest and collar. The transformation was startling. In the janitorial uniform, she'd been invisible. In this uniform, she looked like exactly what she was, a senior officer with over a decade of hard service behind her. Cortez nodded approval. "Better. Now we go outside. I make a statement. You stand there and let them see you. Clear?" "Yes, ma'am." They walked out of the headquarters building together. Word had spread impossibly fast. 200 personnel were assembled in loose formation outside. Phones everywhere. Chen in the front row, tears already streaming. Tyler Grant stood with a group of junior instructors, his expression odd. Hayes, Reeves, and Madsen stood off to the side, their earlier confidence completely gone. Cortez approached a hastily arranged podium with a microphone. Victoria stood 3 paces behind her, at attention. The crowd fell silent. Cortez's voice carried across the assembly without need for amplification, but the microphone ensured everyone heard. I am Rear Admiral Patricia Cortez, Naval Special Warfare Command. I'm here regarding events that occurred this morning involving Lieutenant Commander Victoria Brennan. The title, Lieutenant Commander, sent a ripple through the crowd. The woman standing behind me is a decorated Navy SEAL officer with 12 years of active service. She is a Silver Star recipient. She has served this country.
In combat operations, I am not authorized to detail. Cortez paused. Let that sink in. This morning, she was harassed, mocked, and physically confronted by personnel who saw her janitorial uniform and made assumptions about her worth and capability. Hold on, stop scrolling. What you're about to witness in the next few minutes will completely change everything. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Comment below. Who do you think really failed here? The commander who judged her, or the system that let her fall through the cracks? Rear Admiral Cortez stood at the podium, 150 personnel hanging on every word. Victoria remained at attention behind her, the lieutenant commander insignia on her uniform catching sunlight. What I can tell you, Cortez continued, her voice carrying authority that made even senior officers unconsciously straighten, is that Lieutenant Commander Brennan has more combat experience than most of this base combined. She has saved American lives under conditions I pray none of you ever face. She has sacrificed pieces of herself for this nation. The crowd was absolutely silent. Phones recorded everything. 3 years ago, she led a team into a situation that was compromised before they arrived. 7 of her teammates were killed. She was the sole survivor, extracted under fire after sustaining multiple gunshot wounds. She carried her dying teammates toward salvation knowing they wouldn't make it. That kind of loss changes a person. Victoria's jaw tightened, but her posture remained locked. She was medically discharged not because she lacked capability, but because her mind and body had given everything they could give. And instead of receiving the support she deserved, she ended up cleaning floors at a SEAL training facility, living in her car, invisible. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Chen wiped tears from her face. Cortez's tone hardened. This morning, that invisibility was stripped away. And now we address how that happened. Commander Hayes, step forward. Dylan Hayes walked to the podium like a man approaching execution. His face was ashen, his earlier arrogance completely evaporated. At 38, he suddenly looked much older. Cortez turned to face him. You have something to say to Lieutenant Commander Brennan. Hayes turned to Victoria, came to attention. His voice shook slightly. Lieutenant Commander Brennan, I was completely out of line. My behavior this morning was unprofessional, disrespectful, and unbecoming of my rank and position. He swallowed hard. I judged you based on your appearance and your job without knowing anything about who you are or what you've done. I made assumptions about your worth as a person. I was wrong. Completely wrong. I apologize, ma'am. Victoria's voice was steady. Apology acknowledged. Acknowledged, Commander. Hayes started to step back. Commander, Victoria said. Hayes stopped. Ma'am? You didn't just disrespect me. You disrespected every person in a support role on this base. Every custodian, every cook, every administrative worker who makes your training possible. They deserve the same respect you give to operators. Remember that. Hayes' face flushed with shame. Yes, ma'am, I will. Cortez gestured to Reeves and Madsen. Lieutenant Reeves, Chief Madsen, step forward. Both men approached, visibly terrified. Cortez's gaze could have cut steel. You participated in and escalated harassment of a senior officer. Chief Madsen, you made specific comments about women in military service, comments that suggested they weaken our forces. Do you stand by those statements? Madsen's voice came out hoarse. No, ma'am. I was wrong. Completely wrong. My comments were inappropriate and not reflective of— He stopped, started over. There's no excuse. I'm sorry, ma'am. Cortez turned to Reeves. You put hands on her. Ma'am, I didn't know. You didn't ask. You didn't verify. You assumed. Cortez stepped closer. She could have seriously injured you. Her restraint in not doing so demonstrates more professionalism than you've shown in your entire career. Reeves addressed Victoria directly. Ma'am, I grabbed you. I was aggressive and inappropriate. I understand now that combat experience doesn't have a gender. Capability doesn't require a specific uniform. I'm sorry. Victoria nodded. Accepted, Lieutenant. But understand that every person you train might one day save your life. Treat them accordingly. Yes, ma'am. Cortez returned to the podium. Effective immediately, Commander Hayes is removed as head instructor. You're reassigned to administrative duties pending formal review. Lieutenant Reeves, you're suspended from instructor duties for 30 days. You'll complete harassment training and psychological evaluation. Chief Madsen, you're removed as range master and reassigned to logistics. Same requirements as Lieutenant Reeves. All three men responded in unison. Yes, ma'am. Cortez's expression softened slightly. Petty Officer Grant, step forward. Tyler approached, confused and nervous. You attempted to intervene when your superior officer was behaving inappropriately. That took courage, especially as a junior member of the instructor staff. That's the kind of integrity we need in leadership. Cortez looked at him. Letter of commendation for your file. Well done. Tyler's face flushed. Thank you, ma'am. Cortez addressed the BUDS candidates directly. To those of you in training, you're learning to be SEALs. That means more than physical strength or tactical skill. It means judgment. It means seeing people for their capability, not their appearance. Empathy. It means understanding that the strongest among us sometimes look nothing like what you expect. She gestured to Chen. Seaman Chen, you're the first female candidate at this facility to progress this far in training. You'll face doubt every day. Remember this morning. Remember that the person they mocked could outperform any of them. Let that fuel you. Chen stood at attention, tears streaming, but her voice was strong. Yes, ma'am. Cortez looked at Victoria. Lieutenant Commander, anything you want to say? Victoria stepped to the microphone reluctantly. The crowd pressed closer, phones raised. She was silent for several seconds, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but carried in the still morning air. I didn't want this. I didn't want recognition or attention. I took the janitorial job because I needed to be around familiar sounds and routines while I figured out who I am now. She paused, collecting herself. I'm not the operator I was. I have PTSD. I have nightmares. I wake up at 0400 thinking I'm back in Kabul with my team. Some days I can't touch a weapon without my hands shaking. The admission hung in the air. Vulnerability from someone who just demonstrated superhuman skill. I'm broken in ways that don't show up on a shooting range. The demonstrations you saw today, those are muscle memory. My body remembers what my mind struggles with. But I'm still here. I'm still fighting. Just a different battle now, against my own head instead of external enemies. Victoria looked across the assembled faces. If you see someone struggling, someone who seems out of place or broken, maybe ask before you judge. Everyone's fighting something you can't see. That janitor might be a decorated veteran. That administrative clerk might have more combat time than you. The person you dismiss might be the one who saves your life someday. She stepped back from the microphone.
The formation remained silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, Master Chief Cole began to clap. Others joined. Within seconds, the entire assembly was applauding. Victoria stood rigid, clearly hating the attention but accepting it. Cortez dismissed the formation. As personnel dispersed, still talking and recording, she pulled Victoria aside along with Cole and Phillips. "We need to discuss your future," Cortez said. "You have options. I can arrange administrative work with full rank restoration, different posting, fresh start. Or I can get you veteran housing and continued counseling while you figure out next steps." Victoria shook her head. "Running to a new place didn't help. I just ended up here." "Then what do you want?" Victoria looked at the training compound, the obstacle course where Chen was already back at work, the ranges where new candidates were learning to shoot. I don't know if I can do operational work anymore. But maybe I can teach." Cortez studied her. "Teaching isn't active duty. You wouldn't be in the field, but it would mean being visible, being an authority figure. Can you handle that?" "I don't know," Victoria admitted. "But hiding didn't work either." Cole spoke up. "These candidates need instruction from someone real, someone who's been to the worst places and came back, someone who shows them that broken doesn't mean useless." Cortez considered. "Trial basis. One training cycle. You'd teach weapons, tactics, whatever specialties you choose, but you continue counseling. You check in with medical weekly. First sign you're re-traumatizing yourself, we reevaluate." Victoria met Cortez's eyes. "One cycle. I can do that." Then it's settled. Cortez turned to Phillips. "Get her proper quarters, not that car she's been living in. Instructor housing, private, quiet. And make sure she has access to base counseling services." Phillips nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Cortez looked at Victoria one more time. "Your team would be proud of what you're doing. Surviving when you wanted to die, that's its own kind of courage. Teaching others, passing on what you learned, that honors their memory better than hiding." Victoria's eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. "I hope you're right, ma'am." "I am." Cortez checked her watch. "I have a helicopter to catch and about 6 hours of paperwork documenting why I flew here personally. Commander Hayes will have a very detailed conversation with his chain of command. The formal investigation will take weeks, but he's done as an instructor." As Cortez walked toward her helicopter, Victoria stood in her uniform, watching trainees run drills. Tyler approached carefully. "Ma'am, I just wanted to say—" He paused, searching for words. "Thank you for showing us what real strength looks like." Victoria looked at the young petty officer. "Real strength is asking for help when you need it. Remember that when you see someone struggling." Tyler nodded, walked away. Chen approached next, hesitant. "Ma'am, could I ask you something?" "Go ahead, Seaman." "How do you keep going when everything hurts?" Victoria considered the question seriously. "You find something worth the pain. For me, it's making sure no one else has to learn the hard way what I learned. Maybe that's enough." Chen smiled through tears. "It's more than enough, ma'am." As the sun climbed higher, Victoria walked toward the instructor quarters, Master Chief Cole accompanying her. Behind them, the base had already changed. Personnel moved differently, looked at support staff with new respect. Hayes was gone, and something better had taken root. At 1200 hours, the formal assembly had dispersed, but the base felt different. 150 personnel had witnessed something that would be discussed for years. A janitor revealed as a decorated SEAL officer, a commander humbled, and a 2-star admiral delivering justice in real time. Victoria walked across the compound in her borrowed uniform, hyper-aware of the stairs and phone cameras still tracking her movements. Master Chief Cole guided her to the instructor housing block, a series of small apartments reserved for senior training staff. He unlocked Unit 7 and held the door open. The space was modest: kitchenette, bedroom, bathroom, living area with a couch. Clean, functional, silent. "It's furnished," Cole said. "Utilities included. You'll have privacy here." Victoria stepped inside, her movements careful, as if the space might disappear.
She'd been sleeping in a Honda Civic for 6 months, using the base gym showers before her night shifts. Having walls and a door felt surreal. "I'll need to get my things from my car," she said quietly. Cole's weathered face showed understanding. "I'll help you move them. But Victoria," he paused, "take a breath first. You just had your entire life exposed to a base full of people. That's not easy." Victoria sat on the couch, elbows on her knees, head in her hands. "I never wanted anyone to know." "Why?" "Because this." She gestured at the uniform, the apartment, the situation. "This is who I was. I'm not her anymore. Every time someone calls me Lieutenant Commander or asks about deployments, it reminds me I can't do that job. I'm a broken version of something that used to work." Cole lowered himself into a chair across from her. "You know what I see? Someone who survived impossible odds, took a job nobody wanted, and kept showing up every day. That's not broken. That's adapted." "Adapted," Victoria repeated bitterly. "Is that what we're calling it?" Before Cole could respond, a knock sounded at the door. Victoria tensed instinctively. Threat assessment, exit routes, defensive positions. 6 months of janitorial work hadn't erased those reflexes. Cole opened the door. Commander Hayes stood in the hallway, out of uniform now, wearing civilian clothes. He looked diminished without the authority his rank provided. "Master Chief, I need to speak with Lieutenant Commander Brennan, privately if possible." Cole looked at Victoria, who nodded reluctantly. Cole stepped outside, but didn't go far. His protective instincts wouldn't allow it. Hayes entered slowly, keeping distance, hands visible. The body language of someone approaching a dangerous animal. "Ma'am, I know my public apology wasn't enough." Victoria remained seated, watching him with those unnerving gray-blue eyes. It was sufficient. It wasn't. Hayes leaned against the wall, maintaining space. "I've been trying to get DevGru selection for 6 years. Keep getting passed over. Every evaluation, every review. Not ready. Needs more."
Or seasoning, lacks maturity. I didn't understand why. When I saw you this morning, someone I thought was beneath me, I took out all my frustration on someone who couldn't fight back. Victoria studied him. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you asked me a question in front of everyone. You asked if I understood I disrespected support staff, not just you. I've been thinking about that." Hayes ran a hand through his blonde hair. "I've been leading with ego instead of example. I've been confusing my rank with actual respect. That's why I don't get selected. Because evaluators see what you saw in 5 minutes. I'm not ready." Victoria's expression softened slightly. "You want to know why you're not DevGru?" "Yes, ma'am." "Because Tier 1 operators need judgment more than skill. They need to see people clearly, assess threats accurately, make decisions without ego clouding the picture. You saw a janitor and stopped looking. That's dangerous in the field. That gets people killed." Hayes absorbed that, nodding slowly. "How do I fix it?" "Stop trying to prove you're the best. Start trying to make everyone around you better. Real leaders build other people up. They don't need to tear others down to feel tall." Hayes moved toward the door, then stopped. "For what it's worth, ma'am, I hope you stay. These candidates need to learn from someone like you, someone who's actually been there." After he left, Cole returned. "That took courage." "It took desperation," Victoria corrected, "but maybe desperation leads to growth." 20 minutes later, Lieutenant Reeves appeared. Victoria had moved to the small kitchenette, making coffee with hands that shook slightly, after effects of adrenaline finally crashing. Reeves knocked on the open door. "Ma'am, can I come in?" Victoria nodded. Reeves stood awkwardly in the living area, a young man whose worldview had shattered in the span of 3 hours. At 29, he'd built his identity on being tough, aggressive, dominant. Now he looked lost. "Ma'am, can I ask you something personal?" "Go ahead." "How do you deal with it, the PTSD?" His voice cracked slightly. My older brother, he's 41 now, Marine Infantry. He served in Helmand Province back in 2010. He came back different, angry, isolated, can't hold a job. I don't know how to help him. Victoria's defense is lowered a fraction. Why are you asking me? Because you have it too, but you're still functioning. You're still here. He's barely surviving. Victoria poured 2 cups of coffee, handed one to Reeves. Tell him it's okay to not be okay. Tell him healing isn't linear. Some days are better, some are worse, and that doesn't mean failure. Tell him to find something that keeps him connected to purpose without re-traumatizing him. Reeves wrapped both hands around the mug. What's your purpose?
I don't know yet. Today, it was surviving Admiral Cortez's intervention. Tomorrow, maybe it's teaching someone how to field strip a rifle. Small purposes, day by day. That's enough? It has to be. Because the alternative is giving up, and I've lost too many people to give them that ending to my story. Reeves set down the coffee, came to attention. Ma'am, I'm sorry for grabbing you, for being aggressive, for not seeing you. I know. Apology accepted. Now, go call your brother. Tell him a broken seal said he's worth fighting for. After Reeves left, Victoria stood alone in the apartment. The silence pressed down like physical weight. She'd been alone before, 6 months of solitary night shifts, but this felt different. Then she'd been invisible. Now she was exposed. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. Lieutenant Commander Brennan, this is Jennifer Madsen, Chief Madsen's wife. Victoria tensed. Yes? My husband called me, told me what happened. I run a non-profit for veteran housing. Jennifer's voice was warm but professional. Kurt said you've been living in your car. That's not acceptable. We have temporary housing available immediately while you sort out permanent placement. Admiral Cortez arranged instructor housing for me. I'm fine. Victoria, can I call you Victoria? Jennifer didn't wait for permission. I've worked with transitioning veterans for 8 years. Having a roof is different from having a home. We offer more than just housing. Support groups, counseling connections, employment resources. Let me send you information at least. Victoria found herself agreeing, giving her email address. When the call ended, she stared at her phone. People were trying to help. That felt foreign and uncomfortable and necessary all at once. At 14:30 hours, Master Chief Cole returned with Tyler Grant. They carried boxes from Victoria's car. Pathetically few possessions for someone who'd lived 34 years. Changes of clothes, toiletries, a sleeping bag, a lockbox containing her medals and military documents she couldn't bring herself to display or discard, and a framed photo. Tyler unpacked it carefully from newspaper wrapping. 8 people in desert camouflage, dusty and grinning, somewhere in the Middle East. 7 faces full of life. Victoria in the center, younger, unbroken. Your team? Tyler asked quietly. Victoria took the photo, stared at it. Gold Squadron. The best operators I ever served with. And I led them into an ambush that killed them. Cole's voice was gentle but firm. You led them into a mission with compromised intelligence. That's not the same thing. Feels the same at 0400 when I wake up. They finished unpacking in silence. When Cole and Tyler left, Victoria placed the photo on the small nightstand beside the bed. 8 faces watched her. Accusatory or supportive. She could never decide which. She showered for the first time in 3 days. The gym showers had been undergoing maintenance. The hot water felt like absolution and punishment simultaneously. She changed into clean civilian clothes, then stared at the Navy uniform hanging in the closet. That uniform represented who she'd been. Wearing it meant accepting she couldn't be that person anymore, but had to find a way to honor what remained. At 1900 hours, a knock interrupted her spiral of thoughts. She opened the door to find Seaman Chen standing nervously in the hallway, still in her training uniform. Ma'am, I'm sorry to bother you. I can come back. It's fine. Come in. Chen entered hesitantly. Up close, Victoria could see the physical toll Bud's training was taking.
Bruises, cuts, exhaustion radiating from every movement. At 22, Chen was fighting a battle Victoria remembered well. "What do you need, Seaman?" "I wanted to thank you for what you said during the assembly about not judging people." Chen's voice strengthened. "I've been here 8 weeks. Every day someone tells me I don't belong, that I'll quit, that women can't handle this. Today, you showed them they're wrong." Victoria shook her head. "I didn't do anything special. I just responded to situations." "You existed in a space they said you couldn't. That's everything." Chen met Victoria's eyes. "Will you really be teaching here?" "Trial basis, 1 training cycle." "Good, because we need instructors who've actually done the job, not people who lecture about combat without having been there." Chen moved toward the door, then turned back. "Ma'am, one more thing. That moment when you put Lieutenant Reeves on the ground, was that difficult? The technique? No, choosing to stop, choosing not to hurt him worse. You could have broken his arm. Everyone knows it, but you didn't." Victoria considered the question seriously. "The hardest part of being dangerous is choosing when not to be. That's the lesson. Power without control is just violence." Chen smiled. "I'll remember that." After Chen left, Victoria walked to the window. Darkness had fallen over the base. Lights glowed across the compound. In the distance, she could hear training cadences, instructors shouting corrections, the familiar sounds that had drawn her here 6 months ago. Tomorrow, she'd begin teaching. Tomorrow, she'd stand in front of candidates and instructors as Lieutenant Commander Brennan instead of Victoria the janitor. Tomorrow, she'd try to pass on 12 years of knowledge earned in blood and loss. But tonight, she sat alone with 8 faces in a photograph, whispering the same words she'd whispered every night for 3 years. "I'm still here. I'm still trying. I hope that's enough." 6 weeks later, the Buds compound had settled, edged into a new rhythm. Victoria stood at the front of a classroom at 8:00 hours, 40 trainees seated in rows before her. She wore her instructor uniform now, Lieutenant Commander insignia visible, but the discomfort of visibility had only slightly diminished. At 34, teaching felt more difficult than any combat operation she'd executed. "The M4A1 carbine is a tool," she said, her voice carrying quiet authority. "Like any tool, it requires understanding, respect, and maintenance. Today, we're covering field strip procedures that work in any environment: sand, mud, salt water, blood." She demonstrated while speaking, movements precise and practiced. Muscle memory she'd rebuilt over thousands of repetitions, back when repetition was the difference between life and death. "I've had to do this in the dark, under fire, with injuries. You will too eventually. So we practice until your hands know it better than your brain does. Because when your brain is occupied with staying alive, your hands still need to work." The trainees followed along, 40 sets of hands mimicking her movements. Some struggled. Victoria moved through the rows, correcting grips, adjusting angles, offering quiet guidance. Chen sat in the front row, performing the procedure flawlessly. 6 weeks of Victoria's instruction had sharpened skills that were already impressive. She caught Victoria's approving nod and smiled. After class, Chen approached while others filed out. "Ma'am, question about tomorrow's live fire exercise." "Go ahead." The stress shoot, moving targets while under simulated incoming fire. I've heard it's designed to induce panic response. How do you manage that? Victoria paused, considering honesty versus instruction. She chose honesty. "I don't always manage it. Some days the sound of gunfire still sends me back to Kabul. But I've learned to recognize the signs: elevated heart rate, tunnel vision, time distortion. When I feel those coming, I focus on breathing. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. It gives your brain something concrete to do besides panic." "Does it get easier?" "No, but you get stronger. That's different." Chen nodded, gathered her materials, and left. Victoria stood alone in the empty classroom,
staring at the disassembled rifles on the front table. Teaching was harder than she'd expected. Not the technical aspects, but the emotional exposure. Every class, every interaction, every question forced her to confront what she'd lost and what remained. At 1400 hours, Victoria moved to the outdoor range for advanced marksmanship instruction. Master Chief Cole observed from a distance, his presence both supervisory and protective. Over 6 weeks, he'd become something like a guardian, watching for signs of re-traumatization, ready to intervene if she spiraled. Tyler Grant assisted with the class, setting, galloping up targets at various distances. He'd grown more confident since that morning 6 weeks ago, his intervention on Victoria's behalf having earned respect from peers and superiors. Victoria worked with 12 candidates on precision shooting, 600-yard targets, wind reading, ballistic calculations. She moved between firing positions, offering corrections with patient precision. One trainee, a 19-year-old named Morrison, cocky and struggling, missed his 5th consecutive shot. Frustration radiated from him. Victoria knelt beside his position. "What's wrong?" "I can't hit anything past 400 yards, ma'am. I don't understand why." "Show me your breathing pattern." Morrison took a breath, held it, fired. Miss. "You're holding your breath too long, creates muscle tension, throws off your natural point of aim." Victoria demonstrated proper respiratory pause. Breathe normally, pause at natural respiratory pause. That half second between exhale and inhale. That's your shot window. Morrison tried again. Hit. His eyes widened. "That's it? Just breathing different?" Small things matter at distance. Breathing, heart rate, muscle tension. Master the small things and the big things follow. Morrison nodded, returned to shooting with new focus. Cole approached Victoria during a break. "You're good at this. Teaching, I mean." Victoria watched the candidates working. "It's strange. I spent 12 years doing the job, and teaching it feels harder than executing it. Because doing it was about you. Teaching it is about them. That requires different skills." "I'm not sure I have those skills." Cole smiled slightly. "The fact you question it means you probably do. It's the ones who think they're natural teachers who usually suck at it." At 1730 hours, Victoria returned to her apartment. The space had transformed over 6 weeks, small personal touches accumulating despite her initial resistance. Books on trauma recovery stacked on the coffee table, a coffee maker Tyler had insisted she needed, a plant Chen had given her that Victoria kept forgetting to water but somehow survived anyway. She'd moved beyond the temporary housing into a permanent apartment in the veteran complex Jennifer Madsen had recommended. The rent was subsidized. The neighbors were all former service members who understood nightmares and bad days. And the silence was less oppressive when she knew others nearby were fighting similar battles. Victoria made coffee and sat on her small balcony overlooking the Pacific. Sunset painted the water in oranges and reds. 3 years ago, she would have found it beautiful. Now she just found it present. A moment that existed, neither good nor bad, just real. Her phone buzzed, a text from Jennifer Madsen. "Support group tomorrow, 1900 hours. You should come. No pressure." Victoria had been avoiding the veteran support groups Jennifer ran. Talking about trauma with strangers felt impossible. But Jennifer was persistent in the kindest possible way, checking in weekly, offering resources without demanding participation. Victoria typed back, "Maybe next week." It was the same response she'd given for 5 weeks. Jennifer replied with a simple thumbs up. No judgment, no pressure, just continued invitation. At 0300 hours, Victoria woke screaming. The nightmare was always the same. The Kabul safe house, gunfire, her teammates falling. The desperate scramble to extract the wounded. The helicopter lifting away with bodies she couldn't save. She woke with her heart hammering, drenched in sweat, hands shaking. She didn't try to go back to sleep. Instead, she dressed in workout clothes and walked to the base gym. The facility was nearly empty at this hour. Just a handful of other insomniacs fighting their own demons. Tyler was there, running on a treadmill at a punishing pace. He saw Victoria, nodded acknowledgement, but didn't speak. They'd developed an unspoken understanding. Both awake at 0300 meant nightmares, and nightmares didn't require discussion. Victoria lifted weights in silence, using physical exhaustion to quiet mental chaos. By 500, when the gym began filling with early morning personnel, she felt almost human again. She returned to her apartment, showered, put on her instructor uniform. Another day of teaching candidates skills she could no longer fully execute herself. Another day of pretending she had answers when she was still searching for her own questions. At 7:30, Victoria walked across the compound toward the classroom building. The base looked different in morning light, familiar but transformed. She'd cleaned these walkways for 6 months as an invisible janitor. Now people saluted as she passed, acknowledged her rank, sought her guidance. She passed the instructor lounge where Hayes had first mocked her. A different commander ran training now, someone selected for competence rather than ego. Hayes had been reassigned to administrative duties at a desk job in San Diego. Reeves was completing his suspension and harassment training, due to return in 2 weeks. Madsen worked in logistics, humbled but learning. Victoria entered the classroom to find Chen already present, studying a manual on combat tactics. "You're here early, Seaman." Chen looked up. "I wanted to ask about the scenario training next week, the hostage rescue simulation. I've heard it's designed to be no-win, that no matter what you do, someone dies." Victoria set down her materials. "That's the point. Not every mission is winnable. Sometimes you make the best decision you can, and people still die. The training teaches you to operate under that pressure without freezing. How do you not freeze when you know you're going in?" In to fail? Victoria thought about Kabul, about 7 teammates who died despite everything she'd done. You focus on what you can control. You can't control the outcome, but you can control your actions, your decisions, your effort. Do those things right, and even if the mission fails, you know you gave everything possible. But what if everything possible isn't enough? Then you learn to live with that, which is its own kind of combat. Chen absorbed this silently, then returned to studying. Other trainees filed in. Victoria began the day's lesson: close quarters combat, room clearing, threat assessment. Technical skills she could still teach even when her own execution was unreliable. At 1200 hours, a ceremony was held on the parade ground. Seaman Chen was being recognized for completing the first major phase of BUDS training, Hell Week and beyond. At 22, she'd outlasted 60% of her class, the first female to reach this milestone at this facility. Victoria stood in formation with other instructors, watching Admiral Cortez pin new insignia on Chen's uniform. The young woman stood tall, exhausted, but unbroken, proof that Victoria's existence in this space mattered. After the ceremony, Cortez approached Victoria. "How are you holding up, Lieutenant Commander?" "Still here, ma'am." "That's not what I asked." Victoria met Cortez's perceptive gaze. "Some days are harder than others. Teaching is more emotionally difficult than I expected, but I'm managing. Your counselor says you've been consistent with appointments. That's good." Cortez paused. "I'm extending your trial period. Permanent instructor position if you want it. I don't know if I'm ready for permanent." "You'll never feel ready, but these candidates need you. Chen needs you. The next generation of operators needs someone who'll teach them that strength includes vulnerability, that broken pieces can still be sharp enough to matter." "I'll think about it, ma'am." "Take your time." "But, Victoria," Cortez's voice softened, "your team wouldn't want you to spend the rest of your life punishing yourself for surviving. They'd want you to live. Teaching is living." After Cortez left, Victoria walked to the memorial wall where fallen SEALs were honored. 7 new names had been added since she'd last visited. Her team, finally declassified enough to be publicly mourned. She traced each name with her finger. 7 faces from the photograph on her nightstand.
7 people who'd trusted her leadership and paid with their lives. "I'm teaching," she whispered to the engraved names, "trying to pass on what you taught me, trying to make sure others are better prepared than we were. I hope that's enough. I hope you'd understand why I'm still here."
When you're not. The names offered no response, but Victoria felt fractionally lighter having spoken. At 1900 hours, Victoria made a decision. She drove to the community center where Jennifer Madsen held veteran support groups. 12 people sat in a circle, men and women, various ages, different branches of service, all carrying invisible wounds. Jennifer saw Victoria enter and smiled warmly. "Welcome, we're just starting, grab a seat." Victoria sat, hands clasped, heart racing. A middle-aged Army veteran was speaking about flashbacks triggered by fireworks. Others nodded in recognition. When it was Victoria's turn to speak, she almost said pass. But Chen's question from that morning echoed. How do you not freeze when you know you're going to fail? You focus on what you can control. "I'm Victoria. I'm former Navy. I was medically discharged 3 years ago after losing my entire team in an ambush." Her voice shook but continued. "I've been hiding from who I was, trying to figure out who I am now. I don't have answers yet, but I'm here and I'm trying." The group responded with simple nods of understanding. No judgment, no demands for details, just acknowledgement. It wasn't healing, but it was a start. 6 weeks had passed since that morning when Victoria's identity was exposed. She was no longer invisible, no longer hiding. She was teaching candidates, attending counseling, showing up to support groups, trying to construct a life from the pieces that remained. Some mornings she woke up and thought maybe she could do this. Maybe she could be Lieutenant Commander Brennan the instructor instead of Victoria the janitor or the broken operator haunted by Kabul. Other mornings she woke up screaming and could barely function. But every morning she got up. She put on her uniform, she walked into that classroom. She taught candidates that strength wasn't about never falling, it was about getting back up. And slowly, painfully, she was learning to believe it herself. The story people told about her would spread. The janitor who was secretly a SEAL, the underestimated woman who proved everyone wrong. But Victoria knew the real story was simpler and harder. A person trying to survive the unsurvivable, choosing to live when dying felt easier, finding purpose in helping others while still searching for her own. She entered that compound with no rank, just a mop and bucket. She left with her identity restored, her value recognized, her future uncertain but possible. And in the end, possibility was enough to keep fighting for. If this story resonated with you, subscribe for more. Comment below, what's one time you were underestimated and proved them wrong? And remember, everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Choose respect, choose compassion, choose to look deeper than the surface. Thanks for watching.